and welcome to another episode of Wellbeing at Work, a podcast of workplace options at Telus Health company. I'm Hadeel a senior account manager at WPO, and joining me today is Dana Bissar, a clinical psychologist here at WPO. Today, we're here to discuss how organizations can help their people move forward in the wake of a regional crisis. To get started, I was wondering, Dana, if you could talk about the types of calls you're receiving now, that the immediate danger has passed and circumstances have begun to stabilize, and what this means for leaders as they try to support their staff.
So during the height of the crisis, most of the concerns I was getting were very much about survival. So people were in pure fight or flight mode, trying to make quick decisions about safety, asking themselves, where do I go? How do I protect my family? Can I get out? So in that state, it's understandable that the nervous system is focused on action and not on reflection, right? So there's no room to really process emotions, and people usually try to get through the next hour. So I'll give you an example of a 25-year-old I worked with. So she is the primary caregiver for her aging parents. She, when I spoke to her, when I had a session with her, she was torn between going back to work to support her family and prioritizing her safety. That tension, it by itself, so that tension between being able to financially take care of her loved ones and her personal well-being and safety was incredibly stressful for her. So you can see how at that stage the main concern is usually safety, right? It's usually what will keep the person safe at that moment or at that in that period. But when the crisis passes and things calm down, concerns are different because there's no longer immediate danger. And that's when everything people pushed aside starts to surface. So, despite feeling technically safer, people can still feel anxious, experience low mood or energy. A lot of people also are facing difficulty sleeping, concentrating, or just feeling constantly on edge. So, for example, people can still be noticing unfamiliar sounds or jumping at loud ones. So, the concerns today, they reflect the broader impact. Um, People are exhausted. Some people, many
Mhm.
people are exhausted in general, emotionally and physically. And this decreases their bandwidth, or they feel that they have less tolerance for pressure and for stress. Also, another concern I'm seeing is people who have children or are financially providing for their loved ones or aging parents, as I mentioned the example before. So these people are trying to keep it together while also worrying about income, about housing, and long-term plans they had for them and for their loved ones. So even if now things are calmer, there's still uncertainty. For example, a lot of clients I'm working with, they're asking themselves, could this happen again? Will the region be stable? What does this mean for our future here? And that's really, a lot for people to experience, because usually these questions people do not have answers for, so they cannot know what the future hold for them, for their job or the region. So this uncertainty can really fuel anxiety and disengagement at work. And leaders today have a big role, because the impact can show up today as disengagement or employees taking more sick leaves or drops in performance or morale. So employees might look physically present, but mentally they might feel checked out, or they might become more reactive, especially during times of stress. So I think leaders need to remember that even if the immediate danger has passed, it doesn't mean that employees bounce back automatically. So these worries they're carrying about their family, finances, or the future, what the future holds for them, it's still shaping how they show up every single day to work. And when leaders ensure a psychologically safe work environment, this can soften the impact on employees. I think here leaders they have a role to notice warning signs, because of course that's the first step to any intervention, right? So the leaders need to know what to look for. So what signals that this employee is struggling versus another employee, and usually the signs are any change in behavior that any change in general that the leader can notice, and it's not only a one-off moment, it's usually a pattern over time. So for example, uh, a big drop in their performance, like for example, an employee who has been missing deadlines or has been facing difficulty concentrating, an employee who has always been very interactive, now they are more withdrawn and more isolated, or any change in communication style, like someone who is more irritable compared to their norm. As we said, someone who's taking more sick leaves, someone who is disagreeing more with their colleagues, or they are facing conflicts with their colleagues, or even any physical sign. So let's say an employee who used to take care of themselves, and now they feel they are looking unwell, or they're no longer taking care of themselves, or how they dress or how they look. So any change on that level is also worth noticing.
To that point, perhaps, Dana, you can speak about the importance of helping managers guide their teams through this period of adjustments and how we equip them with the skills needed to do so effectively.
Sure. So managers really are at the center of this whole adjustment period, because after any major crisis, people look to their direct manager first to know if they're safe. So not only if they're safe, but also what's happening next. How worried should they be about their job, about the future, and about their future in the company as well. So this relationship could be one of the strongest predictors of trust and engagement, and even whether people stay or leave the company. So, giving managers the right tools can be very helpful and essential. So, as I mentioned, it's very important to be aware of the warning signs. Or to create opportunities for the employees to express any challenge they might be facing. Because, of course, the first step for everything is to recognize that there is, or to be aware that there is an issue. So the first step is for leaders to start with to do regular check-ins. So to regularly give the space for their employees, even for 10 minutes. These can be one-on-one check-ins, to just provide them with the space to talk about any concern they have. Flexibility here is also very important. For example, flexible hours, workload adjustments, because it provides people with a sense of control on how they're working, and communication as well. Communication, it's very important to encourage it, because uh, to make sure that the employee doesn't feel judged or fears being seen in a negative light if they open up. So this would basically, again, it goes back to normalizing, or to remind employees that it's normal, to be going through a difficult time. Another way to remind the employee that the manager can do is to model the behavior that they want to see in the employee. So to model even a balance, like for example, taking breaks, managing the workload, or showing boundaries, which communicates to the employee that it's safe to do the same. Of course, last thing is to connect employees with the support resources, or at least to remind them, because a lot of employees do not know the support resources that are available at their company. So it's important for leaders to remind them that there is an EAP, to explain to them what an EAP is, and to encourage them to reach out, or even to reach out to HR to check any well-being programs that are available. So as I mentioned, it's really important to normalize these conversations about stress and mental health, because it helps reduce the stigma. And this helps employees feel heard and seen at the workplace.
I'd like to add, as someone who is in daily contact with their clients, one of the things we consistently encourage our clients is to actively engage their managers in the EEP services. And it doesn't just stop there. We also make sure the managers themselves are supported. Um, in the EAP, we have a service called the Manager Assist, and this is when the service steps in. The Manager Assist is a dedicated feature designed specifically for managers, because as you know, supporting a team starts with supporting the people who lead them. I'd like to see that there is two distinct sides for the Manager Assist, and how can we actually support the managers. The first is the management skills coaching, which is in these cases we like covering areas like emotional intelligence, leading with empathy, motivating employees, and managing remote teams, among others. Um, the second um, the second side is more of practical guidance to help manager recognize early warning signs, reflect on what's needed, how to best approach the situation without being intrusive, respond quickly and effectively. And the last one, refer employees to the EEP. So it's basically those 4 R's: recognize, reflect, respond, refer. It kind of creates a ripple effect. When managers feel supported and confident, the whole team feels it. It really helps rebuild the trust, reduce conflict, and bring back a sense of stability after a really destabilizing time. Which brings me actually to the value of the EAP and why it's such a strong investment. Dana, if you could explain how our support help employees recover and re-engage after a crisis.
Of course. So, after a crisis, people need steady, reliable support to help them recover, make decisions, and slowly re engage with their lives and their work. And After something major happening, the brain usually gets stuck in survival mode. So, we see people overwhelmed with what ifs or worst case scenarios. So, for example, I work with a lot of clients who have what if thoughts, what if this happens, what if that happens, or really imagining the worst case scenarios. And this creates a heavy sense of helplessness. So, what the EAP does is it helps people move out of that reactive place and into a more grounded and empowered one. The first thing we do is we help people focus on what they can control. A lot of clients are caught in the loop of uncertainty. So, as I told you, the what if thoughts or the worst case scenarios. And through counseling, we help them sort through all that noise. So, to figure out what is truly within their influence and to help them let go of the rest. This kind of reframing really does reduce anxiety and help people make clearer decisions. The second piece is practical support. So many employees, they need help finding local resources, like, for example, medical care, childcare, financial advice, relocation support, or any service that helps them go through this challenging time that they're experiencing. And this is important because after a crisis, people's ability to plan and organize is often impacted. So even small tasks can feel very overwhelming. Having someone who can track down resources and do the research for them, it takes a huge weight off and brings them back a sense of stability. Third, our counseling helps people rebuild resilience and emotional awareness. So we help them understand their reactions, develop healthier coping strategies, and slowly rebuild their routines. Let me give you an example of a client who has been preparing for a major professional milestone, which was a promotion into a leadership role. And after the crisis, they completely lost sense of direction, which is very, common and normal. But this client couldn't focus in meetings and they doubted their abilities. So they started questioning whether they were still able and capable of stepping into that role. So through counseling, we helped them unpack what was getting in the way. Was it fear? Was it exhaustion? Or the pressure of putting them that they were putting on themselves? So certain expectations that were really adding to the weight on their shoulders. Together, we clarified what they actually wanted for their career. We help them identify. We work together actually to identify the skills and steps needed for promotion, and created a realistic plan to rebuild momentum. A plan that takes into consideration the circumstances that are happening in the region and the changes that were happening in this client's personal life. So once they had that structure, their confidence started to return. And with time, they became more engaged at work. They communicated more clearly with their manager. And slowly, they felt like they were back on a path that made sense for them. And that's really the heart of the AAP. So, as people start thinking long term again, while still dealing with uncertainty, of course, the EAP helps them revisit their goals, adjust where needed, and figure out how to move forward. And that process brings them back their confidence and motivation, and in general, it improves their well-being. So the value of the EAP isn't just about responding to a crisis in the moment, but it helps people move forward when employees feel supported in that way. Because when they receive this kind of support, it automatically shows in the retention rates, the morale, and the performance of the employees.
Yes, it's not just a reactive approach. I would just put it this way. It's not just a reactive approach, it's also a proactive approach towards your overall well-being. There's a misconception about EAP being just counseling, and it's good that you mentioned different kind of support that we have, some of the resources we have. The counseling, so the counseling part is just one part. There's also life coaching, where you can also be really more proactive with your approach. You don't need to wait until things become very stressful to reach to the counseling part. Well, this has been a truly insightful conversation. Thank you so much, Dana, for joining me today.
Thank you so much, Hadeel, for having me.
And taking the time to share your insights and expertise with all of us. To our listeners, thank you so much for tuning in. Please be sure to visit our website at www.workplaceoptions.com to connect with us and learn more about how we can help your employee and organization thrive amidst ongoing disruption and uncertainty. Until next time, thanks for listening and take care.